Hello everyone, welcome back to this stage of SLUGME 6, a 24-hour long event. We have entered stage UTC-7, or better known as Pacific Time Zone. Home of sunny California, sweet home Oregon, beautiful Mount Rainier, fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, and many other beautiful cities. I would like to give a special welcome to everyone in this time zone watching. We welcome you to enter the YouTube chat. Let us know that you're here, that you're watching. We would love to hear from you. This goes for everyone else as well. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to enter the chat. For this segment, I will be your crew chief. My name is Jose Saldaña, and I am the SWGN Committee representative for Western US and Latin America. Our driver today, all the way from Southern Texas, is Juan Chapa, process consultant for Dassault Systems. Juan has worked designing heavy machinery using SOLIDWORKS since 2006. He worked for a SOLIDWORKS reseller as an applications engineer for 12 years. Juan is a very experienced driver. I'm very excited to have him on board. Enough intro. As they say in Texas, Juan, take it away.
Well, hello, and thank you for continuing to be part of this great event. My name is Juan Chapa, and I come to you from Texas. I am covering the UTC-7 time zone. Um, very excited to be part of this great event, the SOLIDWORKS largest user group meeting ever and longest ever. So we've seen so much great content from a lot of great people, and there's a lot more to come. So I'm just very happy and excited to be part of this event, and I know that we have people from all over the world watching this series, this event. Muchas gracias a todos los que nos acompañan el día de hoy. Mi nombre es Juan Chapa, los acompaño desde el estado de Texas, aquí en Estados Unidos, para toda nuestra gente de habla hispana, toda la gente que nos acompaña de México, de Centroamérica, de Sudamérica, gente que nos acompaña en distintas partes del mundo en habla hispana, incluso en Europa. Les agradecemos mucho su tiempo, estoy muy contento de estar aquí con ustedes. Y bueno, pues en este caso hablaremos de la biblioteca de diseño dentro de SOLIDWORKS. In this time around, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about the SOLIDWORKS Design Library. In case you're not using it yet, hopefully this will go ahead and maybe give you a good idea on how to use it with your company. And if you are using it, hopefully you'll learn a few new tricks here with the library. So let's go ahead and get started. The agenda for today: do a quick introduction on what the design library is, what happens if it's not there, whether you went through an update, upgrade, modification of your installation, and you certainly don't see that in the location where it's supposed to be, what type of files go or can be saved in the design library. And then I'm going to just show different scenarios on how you can prepare, you can add, you can customize, you can use the design library. So with that, where is the design library, or what is it for that matter? Well, it's really just a location that is found. It's a folder that has subfolders and subfolders that is found in the task pane, and along with the SOLIDWORKS content section with the toolbox, you should see the design library out of the box. But if you don't, I'll show you how you can add that, or you can even add your own additional folders. But all it is just a central location where you have all your reusable elements, such as parts, assemblies, sketches, annotations. Um, you can also customize it as much as you want. You can have multiple folders, directories, and then share it with your colleagues, with the different users within your organization. There are some file types that do not belong there, that are not recognized. I'm going to talk about which they are as well. But let's concentrate on what we can use, right? So what if it's not in the task pane? What if you open up SOLIDWORKS, you went through a change and a modification to the installation, and you no longer see it? This right here is the default location where you would find the design library. All right. So it's a folder that has already a group of subfolders, and even they categorize by annotations, features, parts, assemblies. We even have some additional tools for routing purposes, for sheet metal purposes, etc. So there's some different examples. And if it's not there, you can easily just add. There's a couple of ways that you can add the location of that default design library. If it's not there, this is a good way to do that using this add file location button. You simply go and browse for this directory, select the top level folder, which is design library, and you'll be able to see it there. And there's another way to do that through the options menu to the system options, which I'm gonna show you later on as well. So what types of files can we store in there? Simply annotations of any sort, such as notes, weld symbols, surface finish symbols, anything that you can go ahead and categorize as annotations. You can go ahead and save entire sketches. You can go ahead and save a feature or a group of features, so you don't have to be recreating them. I'll show a couple of examples. Of course, you can store parts. You can also store assemblies, and you can go ahead and create smart components. If you are not too aware of what smart components are, I will show you an example how to create one and the purpose of it. Very, very cool technology. If you haven't seen it or use it, I encourage you guys to start using it as well. If you guys use routing with SOLIDWORKS Premium, well, you will see an out-of-the-box routing components folder as well that you can utilize, as well as if you're using sheet metal parts, sheet metal components, there's already an out-of-the-box forming tools folder that you can also utilize, mold tools, etc. Really, there's just a lot of different reasons why or files and that you can store in this libraries. And again, the purpose of it is just to simply save the time and effort into having to go and look for this files. So let's go ahead and take it for a spin. Let's go ahead and open up SolidWorks, and let's just show different scenarios on how you would use a design library, and then maybe hopefully learn a few things here and there. So let's go. Okay, well, now that we're in SolidWorks, the task pane is where we go and find our not only the design library, but also the toolbox. We got SOLIDWORKS content. As I mentioned in the presentation, the directory or the file location for the out-of-the-box design library is found under your program data. So here's the directory itself. Usually it's just under program data, SolidWorks, whatever version you've got, and then design library. So as you can see, it's just a regular folder that has subfolders out of the box. Some of those files that are included are some annotations, some parts, there's some assemblies, some features, and notice here under features we got subfolders as well, and then another subfolder, and then finally we get to the SOLIDWORKS files. So there are files, like I mentioned in the presentation, that are accepted, some that are not, but all this is just a folder. So in reality, you can take advantage of the out-of-the-box design library, or you can just dump any files that you need to into these categories. You can create your own categories. You can go ahead and just link any folder that you might have your common components to this location, to this directory, and that way you can be able to assign to find those files quickly. So you can see here that there's already the same structure, and if there are any subfolders, you see the subfolders there. If you need to create another folder, all you got to do is select where you want to go ahead and create it. You can go ahead and select to create a new folder from here, or through just Windows Explorer, add the folder inside the design library folder. But it's as easy as just creating a new folder there, calling Juan's favorites, whatever information you want to put there. And if you want to create a new folder there, I'll call this one maybe Juan's notes, and go from there. Right? So you don't want to get too crazy either, but I mean, you want to have accessibility to the content from here. Now, as I also said, if for some reason you go through an update, an upgrade, swap machines, new version of SolidWorks, and you don't see design library here, you can simply add the file location of that original directory, which is under program data, SolidWorks, whatever version of SolidWorks you've got, and then just point it to the top level folder, which is there. So hit OK, and then you'll see that directory here. You can also access or assign this location under your tool options. Under file locations, there's a section here for design library, and you can see it's the same directory there. So yeah, you can have multiple. You can also add a network or a shared folder. So it's up to whatever you prefer. The idea here is to have access to this folder that one, it already exists. You can have a little pre-created group of files, and you can use those or derive some from there. All right. So what are they used for? So for instance, if we go to the annotation section, here you can store any sort of symbols like your tolerance information, your weld symbols, your surface finish symbols, any notes for that matter. I'll demonstrate how you can use those in a drawing environment. So you can quickly save them there, and if you need to use them, for instance, you can simply drag and drop them instead of having to go and find them. If it's something that you commonly use, you can simply go in there and assign it. Of course, here I'm putting it on a surface of a 3D model. If it's a note, you can go ahead and save that into a note, or create a text here, add a note, and then just save that into that folder. I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to do that, but it's something as simple as adding those files there. All right, so let's take an example. All right, so how can we use this? Well, if we go in there and just something very, very simple, if I go in and create a sketch, for instance, and here I'm just going to go ahead and create a simple block. I would extrude like this, but I know Toby Snart is watching, and he always makes sure that his sketches are fully defined. So I don't want to go ahead and upset Toby. So here we go. So we got a fully defined rectangle there. Just simply going to go ahead and extrude that. And again, I'm just using this as maybe a foundation here as a way to save some geometry into the library. I'm going to save a sketch. You can also save a note. You can also save a feature. So I'm going to demonstrate using this block. So what do I do here? Well, I want to go ahead and create a sketch on this surface right here. Okay, it is important on the surfaces that you create. I'll show some examples where if you do not want to have any external references, if you want to go ahead and be able to locate the feature or group of features, or if you want to locate the sketch or the annotation, it's important that you think about those external references. Okay, but to make things very simple, all I'm going to do here is just simply create a midpoint line right from the origin. All right, and again, want to make sure that we dimension this. Auto dimension, let's make that 10 inches. And then I'm going to make that construction. So here's a little quick trick here. I want to make that construction geometry because I want to add a for here, I'm just going to do a quick cutout. So I'm going to use my text. I'm going to use that as a guide curve there on my curve section. And then let's do SLUGME 6. All right, so just stretch this out a bit. Let me see how 2-inch letters look to me. Yeah, it's kind of big. So let's go to 1.5 inch. All right, perfect. So here I'll go ahead and just simply do a quick cutout using my shortcut bar. I'm gonna right click here to make sure that it's going through all. Right click again to accept. And I do want to go ahead and just create that geometry there. So lots of things happen here, right? So I made a quick sketch on this surface. It's fully defined with respect to the line. Of course, the text is not defined. That's why you got that underdefined, which is fine. And then I was able to use that sketch to create this cutout. All right. So there's a difference between saving a sketch versus saving a note. All right. So a note, what is a note? Well, if I go into insert annotations, anything that's here can be saved into that into the library as well, and not necessarily into that annotations folder, but it's convenient that we already have one. So let's say I add a quick note here, and the note can be on a surface or on the screen, doesn't matter. This is going to be just again SLUGME 6, but I'm going to call this one note. So I got two things. I've got the sketch, the feature, and then the note, right? So how do we save stuff into the library? We select the location or where we want to put those. So if I want to create, notice that I don't have a folder for sketches, right? So let's say I want to create a folder here and I want to call this folder just simply sketches. Okay, so I want to save a sketch into that folder. What's a sketch? On the tree, it's already there. So I simply select the sketch that I want to put, that I want to save, and then select the location, and I simply go and say add to library. Okay, I can call this one SLUGME 6 sketch, and you can see here that there's some other items that I want to go ahead and talk about in the near future. But you can see it's going to be saved as a block, right? Because it's just a simple sketch. That's all it is. All right, where is it? It's right here. SLUGME sketch. I also want to save this note. So how do I do that? I click on the note itself, and I go in, and this time I'm going to save it under annotations, and I'm going to do the same thing. The note is selected. I'm going to save, add to library. I'm going to call this one SLUGME 6 note, and then it's going to be saved. Notice as a note, right? So it's not going to go ahead and be a block. It's going to be a note. Where it's right. It's going to go ahead and be right here. All right. So how do we reuse those? Simply drag and drop. Notice that it is a node. You can reuse it. If I want to attach that or add a leader, being a node, I can select it, and I've got the same exact options as you would normally do with a node. You want to attach it to a surface. You want to attach it to an edge. Of course, the arrow and the leader changes, right? But regardless, it is a node. Okay. What about the sketch? Well, the sketch itself, let me put it here. So it's a little bit it's shiny. So if I go to my sketch folder, drag that over here, and then notice that I can go ahead and drop that in the surface as a sketch. So if that's the case, now I can go ahead and instead of cutting, I can simply maybe select to extrude that, and not that much, but it'll be extruded like that. So again, it has the advantage of just being a sketch, and that you can use it to do something completely different. But if you wanted to save this as a cutout, so now you're saving the entire feature. So instead of selecting sketch, you select the feature itself. In this case, I'm selecting the cutout, and I'm going to a different folder. It really doesn't matter where you would save it. So I'm going to save it here. I'm going to save that as a added to the library, and I'm going to call this one again SLUGME feature, and it is going to be saved as a library feature part. Okay. Again, another type of item. That this is because I'm saving. You can either do one single feature, or here, if you wanted to save multiple, you just go and select whichever features you want to, and it'll group them together. All right, and I'll show simply a couple of other scenarios. So for the name, because I modified it. Let me 6 feature. So notice that now it's going to go ahead and be saved as a feature. Okay, and if I want to test this out, I'm not going to save this right here. By the way, this is something also very important. I've got a part that I used to create a note that I already saved and deleted, right? I also created a sketch, and then I use that sketch to my library, which is here. Okay, and notice that I deleted that feature as well. And now I just saved a feature that is using the sketch, unrelated, but now it's saved that feature here, right? I don't have to save the part, okay? Because I don't need it. I just used it. Pretty much used the part just to create this geometry. So how do I test that? Well, let's just make a new block here and do a quick test just to see. It is going to be looking for that reference, the reference that I used to create it. And again, just something real quick here. I want to do bigger because I think the overall dimensions there were a little bigger. So do that. It doesn't matter the thickness because remember we used uh, cutout through all. So now when I drag that over, it's going to go ahead and now look for a reference. Why? Because I attached the original midpoint line. I attached that to the origin. So all I have to do is go and select that, and it'll go ahead and now create that cutout, right? and it is throughout. You can see that there. So it's as easy as that, right? So that's the advantage of having, instead of having to recreate all this work, might as well save this. Again, we use three different scenarios here: annotations, we use a sketch, and we also use the feature. Okay, so it's something that you can go ahead and save. Now, when you're using this, notice that it has a library feature icon on the feature tree, which means that I can go in there, go to edit feature. In this particular scenario, I don't have a configurations. But I could have created alternate configurations. There are several files that I'm going to show with examples on configurations, but I could have done that. And notice that if I need to change my reference point, if I want to select another point, perhaps I could just go in there and sketch a new point, put it in a vertex. Of course, this is going to give me an error message, but it's looking for just a position where I'm going to go ahead and reference that midpoint line. So just keep that in mind. You can still go in and make those changes. You can also choose to right click and dissolve the library feature. When you do that, it just becomes its own cut with its own sketch. All right, no relation to I can't go in there and if I had any other configurations, I can't change that anymore. Anything along those lines. So very simple. Something simple to keep in mind. Is just a way of creating this very common procedures that we use: annotations, sketches, and in this case features. Okay, let's show a couple of other examples on different features. So instead, now that we covered the annotation section, I'll discuss that more in detail when we get to the drawing section. But we did an example of a sketch of a feature. Um, some of these features that are already out of the box, such as this fluid power port, for instance, notice that if I open that original library feature part, okay, this one already has a multiple configurations here. Okay, what are those configurations? Well, they're just simply different sizes of the cutout. Now, in this section or in this particular library feature part, the features that were saved, it's one single feature that was saved as a library feature part, but that contains a sketch. It also has a reference plane and a reference sketch. Why? Well, notice that just to go back in history a bit, we have the just a default cylinder that was built just to make the features that were saved, just like I did the block, right? So if we got this sketch, okay, so on this sketch, this is the first thing that was added. First of all, it was added on this surface right here, right? So keep that in mind. Then when they added this sketch, they added that sketch, and there's a reference concentric to the outer edge. Notice how it's highlighted there. All right, so far so good. Then from there, they use that sketch to create this plane. All right, so notice that they use the line, one of the lines from that sketch, and the sketch point. So that's how this reference plane was created. What was that plane used for? To build this sketch. If you go to the edit sketch plane option, notice that it was plane one was used for it. And notice how complex this sketch is. It's got a lot of detail. And all those purple dimensions, it just means that they are configured using a design table. Okay, so far so good, I hope. So that's how this was done. So when they saved this, they pretty much just control selected all the geometry that needed to be saved, or shift select, and then they went here and saved this as a library feature part. How do we use that? Well, let's go ahead and pull up an example here real quick. So if I go and bring in this feature right here, notice that there's even a description there. Okay, that there's a description that you can also add when you save this library feature. I'm gonna open it again so you can see it. So there's a description box. When you do create this library feature, say I wanted to save that as a library feature, add that. Notice there's a description here. That's how they added the instructions. That's all it is. But those instructions pretty much say drag and drop onto the circular planar face. Select the circular edge to locate the feature. Okay, just remember everything that I mentioned before. So if I drag that over into that cylindrical surface, cylindrical face, it now found that original plane or face for the original sketch. The sketch that had that little cross with a point in the middle, that's it. All right. So from there, Now we go in and it's asking me to select the configuration. How do I know that? Well, because there's nothing selected and I don't see an actual cutout there yet. So I go in there and I'll go ahead and select this one as an example. And as soon this one has different configurations as I showed. As soon as I pick a configuration, now it's looking for references. If you recall, that center point of the sketch, it was concentric to the outer edge of the cylinder. What does that mean? Now it's looking for the location of this cutout and it's looking for that reference. All right, this is just an image, just giving me instructions pretty much on what to select. So I'll just select this right here and notice that it's going to go ahead and now locate the cutout from that feature. And I can still go in there, and if I needed to change the configuration, I could. If I need to make a different selection, I can. There's this link to library part section where if I select that now, if anything happens to this original part in the future that affects this configuration, then when I open this part, just like a part in an assembly in a drawing, it's going to go ahead and update to those changes. If I don't check that box, then it doesn't matter what this looks like anymore. It's living here now. There's an instance, a copy of it living in this file right here. It's still going to be a library feature part as I showed in the previous example. I can go back and as a library feature part, go and modify the size. This is way too big. So I can go in and change the size of it. And it gives me that advantage of keeping the configurations from the library feature. If I do decide to dissolve it, then I can no longer go and select individual configurations. So far, so good. I hope this is just a quick way of explaining why those references are located. Just like that, there's a lot of other examples here that you can take advantage or that you can reuse, maybe alter, modify, and make them your own. Okay, there's nothing absolutely that's going to prevent that from happening. Okay, so just to show you an example, and again, I'm a huge fan of those those boxes. Very simple to create. That's why I'm doing that. Just to give you a quick idea on how to make that happen. If I go in here and let me do something different this time. I'm just gonna go ahead and instead of just using a block here, I'm gonna I feel a little happy today, so I'm just gonna go ahead and create a happy face. So how about that? So let's just do that. Let me go ahead and make this box. I'll make a new sketch there, and I'll just use actually let me just use the center point, so that way I can know where exactly it's located. So let's say I do this little smiling face there, and then I can go ahead and also add some eyes there. All right, I can go ahead and also just create some quick relations here. So make sure that those two are horizontal. Um, let's let's go ahead and add. Notice that there's already a dimension there, so that's two. Let's do 180, a whole 180, and then right here I just like even or some dimensions that make sense. So to do that, and this right here, just a quick FYI, what I can do here is I can make that equal to this dimension right here times 2. Okay. In case you didn't know how to make equations in SolidWorks or use equations, that's just the way it is. So it's a little big, that's fine. And of course, this is going to be equal to that. So I'm just making all those relations ahead of time. Um, and let's just finish dimensioning this so that way we can have a fully defined sketch. And I want to go ahead and make sure that Toby is also impressed here. Okay, make sure you always define your sketches. So I'll do that. It's actually didn't like one of those relations, so might have been this one. There you go. So it's a done deal. So we're good to go. So what I want to do now is make a quick cutout. Okay, and just yeah, let's do through all. All right, so this is just a quick happy face there, and I can alter. We know that we can alter those dimensions, and then of course it's going to go ahead and change our geometry accordingly, right? Here and here, etc. So let's undo all that. So let's configure some of these items here. All right. Now, how do we configure I'll make a quick configuration. So let's do this. If I go in here and I want to start, I want to just, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that's still two. I'm going to configure this dimension, and that's it. all right, because remember, this is driven by that. So that's all I want to do here. So I can right click and select configure dimension. A lot of you might come across this message right here. Okay, what is this about? Well, it's saying that the property text file cannot be located in this location. Notice 2020. I'm using 21. All right, this happens sometimes when you do an update, an upgrade, and this might not be updated appropriately. Let me show you a quick shortcut on how to fix this really quick. If you go to File Locations under Tools Options, and then Edit All, you can go down the list and look for anything that says 2020 and change it to 2021, right? Easy. But you can also do Find Replace and find everything that says 2020 and replace that with 2021. Uh-oh, not 2121. Few years for that. And then we can go ahead and replace. Find next. You can see that that's one of them. All right, so I can go ahead and replace, or I can just replace all, and then it's going to show me everywhere this was replaced. And that being the custom property list is one of them. So I can simply save that. Yes, 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 all the way. And now, if I repeat the process there, I just took care of that problem. Okay, no longer there. All right, so let's go ahead and just do a quick configuration here. I'm gonna pick those two dimensions, and I'm just gonna call this one happy face 1 and then happy face 2. So let's just do H1. What did I do here? Let's click again here. Okay, so let's rename. Mess that up there. H1, happy face 1. And then H2. I'm just going to do two instances, right? Because that's what I want to save. Notice that easy as that, you save two configurations. We can make this a little bit bigger, 2.25. I don't even know what that's going to look like. And then this can be maybe half. And then let's do this 1.75. And let's do this 1. I'm a little curious to see what happens there. Now, here's another quick trick. If you want to save this table, so that you don't have to go and choose or repeat the process, you can simply here, I'm going to call this one happy face table, and then save that. So I can go ahead and recall it if I need to retrieve it. So what did I just do? I just created this configuration. I had a feeling that one of them was going to be too big or too small. Actually, both of them were. All right, no problem at all. Let's just recall the table. Let's just make a very small 1.875, and then let's make this one 0.75 and see what that looks like. Actually, this one didn't work either, right? So let's just do 2 and 1 and see what happens. Okay, that one works. What about this one? This one, it's not working. So let's do 0.875. I just want a little variation, and I think this one's going to work now. Let's rebuild. Yeah, it does. Okay, so I'll apply and change. So I've got those variations here. Now they're different. All right, you can see they're all different. Okay, so what I want to do now, I'm going to save this feature. Remember, it's configured. I'm going to save that into here, and I'm going to call that one as a feature. I'm going to add that and call that happy face. Okay, it's library feature part. Okay, so what is that going to do? Well, now that's going to go ahead and save this happy face as um, a configured part. All right. So if I open it up again, notice that it's going to go ahead and show me all the different configurations that it saved into it. All right. So that's how you go in. You first go create it, add your configurations, and then you're able to go ahead and save them like that. So easy enough. All right, so what else can we do? Well, we can go ahead and also create some smart components. Smart components are useful because they allow us um, to create, like for instance here, this component, very quick example here. This is a smart component. I brought it from the existing smart components that are here. So if you go to parts, there's already some smart components here under the parts subs folder, and this is one of them right here. So what that does, if I use that over into an assembly, so if I go in there and make a quick assembly, all right, and then I use that part. So let's just insert a component here. I'll go ahead and I know I had a part ready here, so let's just go and find the easy way of it. So if I go and drag that over here as a part, that's my first part, and use that. just notice that I can drop it in here. Okay, select the configuration. So what did that do? Right now, it didn't do anything, right? So if I click there and then isolate, it didn't do anything. It just mated it, okay? Also because it had a mate reference. Notice that this part right here has a little lightning symbol in it. If I click on it, then the lightning symbol appears here. And what does that do? No, no, actually, no other steps other than clicking on it. If I click on that lightning symbol, notice what just happened. If I isolate now, voila. All right, so that's something that you're able to go ahead and all those cutouts, including any additional hardware, you're able to do. So again, you're just building onto that library. Yeah, of course. If I end up moving this, if I didn't, depending on the mate that I added, I just added that mate right there. If I want to go ahead and move it out of position to a different location, or put it in a different location for that matter. Maybe swap it or whatever the case might be. It's going to go ahead and update the location of where it belongs. All right, so it's just just building your library, but you're also adding some additional just smarter technology into the component itself. So how do you do that? Well, here's a quick sample. All right, so I'm just going to take it to a quick sample on how to create a just a smart component. You do need a resource assembly, like a sample assembly, like the one that I've got here. Okay, so check this out. We've got the door or the blocks. We got the doorknob, the strike, and then the other handle on the other side, right? Now, there are some features already here. So if I go in and isolate this, notice that there's already a cutout. There's another small cutout here and another cutout here, right? Now, it's important that those cutouts, like for instance, for the knob itself, the cutout is happening here, right? That's where the cutout is at. But notice that it's all in context. And if I go and edit in the sketching context, notice that it's derived to the actual doorknob. So there's pretty much kind of like an offset entity from that doorknob profile. So it's related to the doorknob, but the sketch is located here. That happens to this box. That happens to the outer to the inner holes there as well. This one right here, the little cutout. So we got three different features on the original box, and then we have three components. So how do you make a smart component? You make a smart component, then you put it in the library. Man, you're on wheels. Now, if you got configurations and smart components, and I mean that just adds just another extra piece of lightning there, if I should say. So how do you do that? You go out to tools, make smart component, and then you just select the component that you're going to go and make smart. So next time, if I want to go ahead and do all the hardware cutout and then add the two pieces right here, all I got to do is simply drag that doorknob, put it somewhere else in another assembly, and it's going to make that magic happen. Okay, let me show you how that works. If I want to include any components along with it, I can select them here. If I want to select any features, then I can click on the features here. So I'm gonna, yeah, I wanted those two features. I also want that cutout. So it's gonna go ahead and make all those cutouts the moment that I drop that doorknob. Okay. And now all I have to do is save that component. Okay. I can save that. Again, that smart knob, I'll save that over to my library into under smart components. So I'm gonna call that one smart knob. And now it's there. All right, the smart knob is there. So let's put that to the test. So once again, I go in and let's open up um, this assembly right here. It is an assembly. It has to be an assembly. It does not an in-context part. So that's an assembly. It already has a partial door there. And all I have to do is simply drag and drop it, put it in place. All right. I can mate it in place. I can reposition it. But notice there's no symbol here. But until I click on that part name on the feature tree, that symbol shows up. And just like magic, and what it's looking for right now is that surface. This surface right here, because it wants to know where it goes. The other cutout goes. This one right here, and then this one here in the back. So that's what it's going to do. And then what it's going to do now, if I simply hit OK, what it did, and need to maybe put it closer to the edge. It adds those cutouts. All right. Um, Probably have to modify the length position So I didn't measure that correctly, but what I wanted to show is the surface cutout there and the throughout cutout, and the hardwood comes in there. So just a quick way of showing how that works out, even though it didn't make the cutout the way I anticipated, but that's just a quick example. So it's just working smarter, quicker. In drawings, when you're working with the actual drawings themselves. So I know I've got drawings here. Here's another. I'll leave you with this this last tip, where if I do have a drawing, another way of using this annotations under your design library. Um, you can go ahead and save notes, individual notes, into the annotation section. Like for instance, I've got this note here. Okay, so there's a note there. There's another note here for fillets, and there's another one here that might go here. That's a new one that I just created. So they're just different notes that you might have here that you can potentially use. Right now, what happens when you let me delete those notes? What happens when you drop one note on top of another? So for instance, I've got that there, and I do want for as soon as I drop this one, I want for it to also add it and maybe make a list out of it. All right, but notice that that did not happen right here, right now. So why is that? Well, by default, under tools, options, under drawings, in system options, there's a checkbox here that says disable note merging when dragging. That's turned on by default. If I click that off, notice that now I can go ahead and repeat the process if I've got that, and maybe I already have, let's say on that note, I can do that now. I can do that later, but let's say I have that as an actual item number. So now when I drag and drop any other notes for that matter, like here, notice that it's going to continue to add into it groups it together. Even this new one that I just added, it's a new test. That's all it adds. So just a quick, convenient way of, you might have some notes that you use here and there. So this is a very good way of making that happen. Of maybe just combining or modifying the order and how those notes appear. That's just another use or great use for this. Um, Now you notice also there's a formings tool folder. This applies to sheet metal parts, and this is important because if you do happen to have a sheet metal part, um, and any component for that matter can become a form tool. All right. So like seriously, like this one right here, if I wanted for that to be a form tool, anytime I drag and drop it, it's gonna just create this all this geometry into the geometry. It's just a matter of going into the sheet metal tab, selecting forming tool. It's looking for a stopping face right here. Faces to remove. Maybe I can remove this one. And that's it. Insertion point, I can go ahead and select any geometry for that matter for my insertion point. It can be the center. I mean, it really doesn't matter. But now that's a forming tool. Then I can save that forming tool, select the component, save that into forming tools folder, and I'm going to just add that to the library. Okay, into forming tools, I'm going to call this one test, sluggy test. All right. So how does that work? Well, just I promise this is the last thing I want to show because I didn't want to I did not want to leave this session without showing that because very useful application. If I go and just simply create I'll just go ahead and do something very notice my love of boxes, but this time I'm gonna go ahead and just use that as a sheet metal part right there. Hopefully that's big enough. But notice if I drag and drop that into here, nothing happens. It's asking, do you want to make a derived part? No, cancel. Why? Because if I do not or have not assigned this as a forming tools folder, that's not going to happen. So all I got to do is go into right click on the forming tools folder, select forming tools folder, make sure that it's assigned and everything under it too. And now when I refresh, I can go ahead and drag and drop that in here. And notice that it's going to go ahead and you can flip it over if you need to. But notice I can also choose a position. I'm going to leave everything as is. But what it does, it's going to go ahead and allow me to use that. I think it's not thick enough, so it's got some extra geometry that I can remove. But let me use one that's already there. So for instance, this right here. Um, if it's thick enough, that's a problem, that the plate is too thick. So let's go in here and modify my plate thickness. So let's just edit my um, And the radius is fine. Let's just go and modify the base flange. It's actually thin. I mean, I should have used a gauge table. I'll just do that. I'll go ahead and use a change because I know that these are super thin. I can modify the distance here, but I'll stick to what I know. So let's just do that. Make that super thin, and then let's try that. I'll even try the new one that I just made. Yeah, that's gonna be good enough. So notice that it's gonna go ahead and now add that little bump in there, including the one that I just did. That was the problem originally, that it was not as big. So if I go ahead and do that, it's gonna go ahead and resolve that um, as a form tool. I think it has a lot of small radios, so that's why it's not working. But this is how you have to specify that this is a forming tool folder. That's it. All right. So use of the library, very, very important. You can use it for many purposes. We just scratched the surface here, talking about annotations, notes, features, parts, even full assemblies, molds, etc. So take advantage of that. Thank you very much for the time today. Hope you learned something new on design libraries. I appreciate everyone's time. There's a lot more coming, and I wish you the best of luck. Stick around, and thanks again.
Hello again, and welcome back. Juan, thank you so much. Muchas gracias. You are an excellent driver. Before we end today, I'd like to invite everyone watching to visit the SLUGME website. Find a group, attend a meeting. If you don't have a group in your area, look into starting one. Become a leader. That's what I did. I lead the Fresno, California SOLIDWORKS users group, and it has been a wonderful experience. I love helping my local community of SOLIDWORKS users. That's it for this segment. I'm pleased and happy to turn it back to the racing broadcasting crew, Eric, Dan, Cam, and Todd.